Fatima Hassouna was killed on 16 April 2025, along with 10 members of her family in an Israeli airstrike on their home in Gaza City. She became the subject of the documentary film Put Your Soul in Your Hand and Walk. And the film was selected for the CID film program shown during the 2025 Cannes Film Festival. So yes, the world recognizes this. The cardinal in Italy took 9 hours and recited every single child who has been killed in Gaza. In the town of Utrecht in Holland, for each child killed, they have laid out the small shoes of the children in the sidewalks, calling for ceasefire. A very huge sort of digitally created ceasefire with the shoes of young children killed in Gaza. What has disgusted us is the last round of killings, which were open assassinations. On 10th August, Al Jazeera journalist Anas al-Sharif, Al Jazeera correspondent Mohammad Fareki, and camera operators Ibrahim Zahir and Mohammad Naufal in Gaza were assassinated in a targeted bombing of their tent outside Shifa Hospital, Gaza City. The IDF claimed Anas was a Hamas operative and had put him on an open hit list even earlier. So Anas never spent any time at home. He was always moving around, trying to see that his family did not get killed. On 25th August, this was again repeated. Just a few days ago, 5 journalists reporting from Al Nasir Hospital at Khan Yunis, Mohammad Salma, Al Jazeera cameraman, Hussam Al-Masri, Reuters. This is the guy who was part of the Pulitzer team. Mariam Abu Daga, AP, who's got a little daughter who's been left behind. And freelance journalist Muad Abu Taha and Muhammad Aziz. They were all killed in a serial hit of the same time. What's the strategy? It's very easy. They all know that the journalists, they camp outside or nearby the hospitals. They do that because the dead come in, the injured come in. They meet the parents and they get the information of who's getting killed, where the bombings are happening. So the hospital is a very key hub where they get the information from. And the IDF knows it. And they know that they are clustered in these tents around. And easy pickings. They just come there and kill them. And an old strategy, a long old strategy, what they call the double tap killing, which you use in organized war. You don't use it against journalists and relief workers. So Al Nasir Hospital, the last stage, you must read about it. I mean, on the 5th floor, there is a balcony. The buildings in Gaza are not very tall. They are 5 stories, 6 stories maximum. So the 5th floor balcony gave a certain kind of aerial view of entire Gaza. So all those who are cameramen here, video journalists will know that these tripods were permanently mounted there. So whenever there was some action, bombing, these guys would get the images and they would relay it. So they had set up, that balcony was known as a press balcony. All the press people used to assemble there to basically record these things. And they knew that. So the first bomb, they attacked that balcony first. A few people were killed. And then when the relief workers and the associates of the journalists rushed to that spot, the second tank shell followed and the third tank shell followed. So double tap became triple tap. And 5 journalists as well as about 20 relief workers were killed on the spot. It is like, just very casually picking these off and then you issue an apology. And I was amazed, for the first time the Indian government gave a condemnation or that journalist should not be killed, but they also said, yes, it should be investigated, and the Israeli government is investigating. So, the point is, where does this end? I have no answer. Maybe other speakers have. But somewhere we have to raise our voice. And I was reading a small opinion piece on Al Jazeera, and this is what Imam Hillis wrote recently as an appeal on the first anniversary of the killing of a friend and Gaza journalist, Amna Humayun. I leave you with her words. If mourning Palestinian journalists allows you to feel less guilt, if it makes you feel as though you have fulfilled your duty towards them, then don't mourn them. We do not need more unities. We need justice. It is the least the world can do for the orphaned children of Maryam, Amna, Anis, and the other 244 slain journalists in Gaza. Friends, as we leave the hall after we finish, there is a small table with the 200, 150 journalists' photographs at the ground floor of the Patrikar Sons. Please light a candle or offer something for the journalists. That's small introduction. I request Firoz, and also request, because we would like to hear more from the ambassador, I request everybody to be short. And I really also would like, all our speakers who could make it, thank you so much. But a very, very special thanks to Srinivasan Jain, who's come all the way from Delhi. And he's taken on the trouble to come and share his experiences. He's reported extensively from Gaza, from the West Bank, and I'm sure we'll really, sort of be educated by his personal experiences there. But to give you a small 5-7 minutes sort of capsule, I request my friend Firoz to say a few words, and then we'll have the other journalists before the ambassador leaves.
Yes, thank you, Gurveer, and actually, thank you for Ambassador Srinivasan and actually everyone being here today, because with all the Jalaka thing happening, we were wondering what was really going to happen. Gurveer was very worried. So I think we have 80%, and I think it's a plan for all of us actually. I'll just say a few words firstly about the Palestinian journalists, because they've done something very important. They've not only told the stories of the people, each person who was murdered, but they've actually changed the global balance of power. The Palestinian journalists have actually turned around the narrative, which was the dominant narrative of the Western world, imposed on the psyche of the West, not much of the global South, but it did have its impact. So within a matter of 2 years, since 7th October, the Palestinian journalists who paid with their lives have changed the global narrative away from Israel, which is now a hated and divided nation, including within America, and now maybe within Europe. When Netanyahu's just a little above Elon Musk, that is how low Netanyahu ratings are in the US today. The entire Israeli lobby, the extremist racist Jewish lobby in America, today they're facing a pushback even from the conservative elements within American society. So it is not only about these stories they're told, but the narratives have carried the political weightage, which is leading to the political changes in the world. That is the role these journalists have played. The other thing is that what they've succeeded in doing with their simple mobile phones and equipment and the bombs that we're facing is they've documented the war crimes in real time, which is why Netanyahu is facing an arrest warrant, so is your beloved defense minister, and so are a whole load of We don't call them IDF, we call them IOF, Israeli Offensive Forces. So many of these crimes have been documented, and so many of these war crimes that they themselves have put on YouTube and on their Twitter handles are all being investigated. And we have that little girl called Hind Rajab, the Hind Rajab Foundation. There's a movie being made of Hind Rajab, that's a big break within Hollywood. The top Hollywood actors are actually making movie around her. The girl was shot with 353 bullets. So that Hind Rajab Foundation is now documenting and taking all these war criminals to court. But all this is again the effort of the Palestinian journalists. I just like to come to one important aspect because whenever Netanyahu or any of the extremist rabbis or the extremist Jewish Zionist elements talk, they always start on the 7th of October. And a lot of our friends get caught up in that. Not friends here, but generally speaking, get caught in that trap. The point is, one is it doesn't go back to 1948, it goes back all the way to 1860s, when the plans to create again Israel and Palestine were created. It goes back to Christian Zionism, it goes back to the British Empire, and most problems in the world have come from Britain. This one is again come from Britain. Hitler was instrumental in settling Jews in the 1930s in Palestine. That was the deal, the Havar agreement between Hitler and the Jews in Germany, with the Zionists in Germany, where Hitler settled 60,000 German Jews in Palestine. Okay. Now the point is about the entire thing about the Gaza ghetto uprising. The 7th of October, in my mind, is basically, if you want to understand from the Indian context, is like the uprising of 1857. But we weren't living in a concentration camp. The people of Gaza and Shawesh, Pradhan, my friend here, and myself, we've been to Gaza, we had organized a convoy all the way to there. We've been there. So for 17 years, since 2005, ever since the people of Gaza were blockaded and were in an open-air prison and a concentration camp. So this was the Gaza ghetto uprising, like the Warsaw ghetto uprising of 1944. This was a prison break from the jail that had been put in for 17 years. And this was, and today Gaza grad is like Stalingrad. It is at the very forefront of the resistance of the forces of marauding Western imperialist colonialism. You had Keir Starmer, you had Rishi Sunak, you had Macron, you had Trudeau, you had Biden, you had Kamala Harris, you had Trump, all of them in it together. And Germany, the Germans, unbelievable, because America supplies the majority of weapons, 60 to 70%, but the other 30% are coming from Germany and France and Britain that add up, including Saudi and the other countries are all sending weapons. So 7th of October was basically, and I'll give you all 3 facts out here. And there's one fantastic Jewish journalist, he's married to Indian, Max Blumenthal, please note his name. He's the editor of Grey Zone, one of the leading investigative websites we have in the world, Max Blumenthal. And he was the one who actually blew up the story, and by referring to Israeli news sources. So I'll give you 3 simple facts. And we went to Gaza, you cannot go anywhere around the wall. To think that you could break through the wall and the idea guy didn't know what was happening and Mossad did not know what was happening, really living in a fairy tale land to think of that story that we got. And that is why Netanyahu maintained that there will be no investigation till the war is over. Just as you don't investigation till Pulman and Pelgar. Okay? Similarly, no investigation till 7th of October. If 7th of October had been done by Hamas the way they said it was done, Netanyahu would have had the report out within a week. Okay? I'll give you 3 facts. That Netanyahu knew it was coming. And I'll tell you why they had to do what happened. Okay? The New York Times carried a report on its front pages saying that Netanyahu was aware of the coming attack 1 year prior to the attack. This was on the New York Times front pages. I'll give you the date also. The second fact is that the Egyptian government warned Netanyahu 10 days before that an attack was coming. And Netanyahu called it fake news and nothing much happened after. The Egyptian government himself won. The third fact is that the women soldiers guarding the perimeter of Gaza, who are surveilling it through the drones and the satellites and the cameras that are square foot to square foot of Gaza, those women soldiers were reporting back to the seniors that they are planning something. That we can see that they are changing and they are there are activities going on, they are planning something is happening. They were warned not to speak out to the media, or they will face military tribunals. These are three facts which have appeared in the Israeli media, not in the British media, not in the American media, certainly not in our media. So the Israeli media has been breaking these stories. Now, what happened on the 7th of October? Because a lot of our liberal journalists also get into this trap. 1200 got killed. The figure of 1200 is also not the true figure, I'll give you the true figure. Okay? The point is that there were reasons why the 7th of October happened. Number one was that living in a concentration camp for 17 years was not going to work out. People were going to break out of their jail. And let's go back to 2018, where the largest non-violent movement in the world has ever seen in this century. For 1.5 years, the people of Gaza marched every Friday to the wall, and they were fired upon. So people were giving lessons to the people of Gaza about non-violent resistance. We did not write a single letter supporting the non-violent movement over there. 1.5 years they marched to the borders, and they were shot in the elbow, they were shot in the eyes, they were shot in the knees, killed journalists, nurses, all kinds of things for 1.5 years. The largest non-violent movement. So one was they had to break out of the prison. The second point, when we were in Gaza, we met a number of these prisoner families where the 10,000 prisoners in the jails of Israel and those jails of horrendous, the torture that we are witnessing, now we are all aware of what's happening. So it was a live issue that they wanted the people back. So 7th of October was about capturing certain Israelis, getting them and then doing a change that they've done in the past. They had a Gilad Shalit, Israeli soldier, they had him for 5 years and they exchanged him for 1,007 Palestinians. So the second part was the prison exchange. The third part is that this intifada is also called the Al-Aqsa Intifada, the Al-Aqsa Tufan. The second intifada was also called the Al-Aqsa Intifada. The first intifada in 87. In the second intifada, Ariel Sharon had gone to the Temple Mount, which they call the Temple Mount, Muslims and Christians call the Haram Sharif, and he said that we are going to destroy this mosque and build a temple here. Mandir wahi banane ka nara resonates from Jerusalem to Ayodhya. So that's when the second intifada broke out. And one of my heroes, and I believe the Nelson Mandela Marwan Barghouti, is still in jail. He was set in place recently by Benavir was sponsored going to the jail to threaten. Marwan Barghouti is the Mandela of our times, and he's been in jail since 2002. So the third part of the political prisoners, the Al-Aqsa thing, where every 2 weeks you have these extremist fanatical Jews going to the Haram Sharif and saying, we're going to take over this place and we're going to destroy the mosque and all that. Okay. And the fifth part was when 10 days prior to 7th of October, you had Netanyahu going to the United Nations and showing a map in which there was no Palestine. And he drew what was called the India-Middle East Economic Corridor. And he said that the people of Gaza can keep on jumping out of all they want, the chapter is over, and we're going to sign our agreements with Saudis as well, the Abraham Accords. So the 7th of October is actually ensured that the Abraham Accords are dead, and none of these vassal Arab governments can actually proceed with the signing of the Accords. These were the reasons that led to the 7th of October. Okay? Briefly, I'll tell you what happened on 7th of October. When they broke out, the IDF did not respond for 5 hours. For 5 hours, the IDF was just not around. The first attack that the Hamas had was on a garrison outside. They attacked the military guys, and yes, 350 Israeli soldiers got killed. Afterwards, the idea was to take the hostages and take them back. The first story that tells us the truth of 7th of October was Yassin Porat, an Israeli Jewish lady, who spoke to Israeli Taz radio on October 13, and she basically said that I escaped from there because the Israeli troops targeted us. My friends were killed by Israeli machine gun fire by Israeli tanks. She was the first one to do this. Then we come to the Noah Music Festival. The Noah Music Festival has never been held around Gaza. Somehow it was shifted from the West Bank to the Gaza. The 2-day festival became a 3-day festival. The Hamas guys went out and were wondering what the hell is going on here. So they decided to take some captives again. Israel dispatched its Apache helicopters and shot those guys. And now you need to write down a term and put it in your mind. It's called the Hannibal Directive. The Hannibal Directive is an Israeli term that if anybody of our civilians or soldiers is going to be caught by the Palestinians and then there will be a prison exchange, killed the Israeli. So you had no Ferenc, an Israeli Air Force officer, reserve officer, who said that we witnessed mass Hannibal direct action. There are lots of evidence that Max Blumenthal and other friends have brought to the surface. Two more things. Not a single child was killed by Hamas, or burned by Hamas. The 40 babies that Biden said bad were the photographs he lied. CNN said sorry. No Israeli women were sexually abused or raped. This was a report of a United Nations Human Rights Committee led by women who went to Israel. They told Netanyahu, we want to meet these women. They accused they were raped. None of them were allowed to meet. So all these things were taken apart. Now, coming friends to what I see is panning out in Gaza and the acts of resistance. And what we are doing in India, we're not doing much, but what we can do in India is also commendable by the, if we have to take permission from both to get to Gaza, is really, we're doing really this times. So other than the companies out here, we have all managed to together the last time, the CPM and friends who were left to dinner. Basically, in a way, I believe, Mr. Ambassador, that the Palestinian people are chosen. But I think the Palestinian people are chosen by the people of the world. Those who claim to be chosen by the people of God have a very racist ideology. Okay? Those elements of the Talmud and the Torah are highly racist because they consider the Palestinians and Romans as subhumans. Which is what Jesus Christ came and changed, and he said, blessed be the peacemakers, for we are all the children of God. That's why I was angry with Jesus today. So one is that the people of Palestine and undoubtedly the people of Gaza, the resistance is just unbelievable. 2 years of genocide, not a single white flag saying we are surrendering. They just refuse to leave. We will be buried there below the rubble, we will be buried there below the bombs, but we are not going to South Sudan, we are not going to Trump Towers, we are not going anywhere. We don't want to leave. And let me tell you one more thing, you will not find a single video of an Israeli soldier fighting with a Hamas guy, one-on-one. You only see bombs falling from the top. The videos that you see of the Hamas videos or the other factions that are fighting against the Israelis, you'll see the videos. You'll see them going at times, you'll see them fighting them, ambushing them or something or the other. But the Israelis have been fighting with their technology, with their fancy 2,000-bomb bombs. We've had 6.5 times or 7 times the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki on Gaza. This way, and still they're holding. So what we are witnessing is something very interesting. One is we are witnessing the political defeat of Israel. It's very clear. We witnessed the military defeat of Israel in 2006 when we were defeated by Hezbollah. We were there, some of us went to Beirut during the course of war. We were stunned by the fact that Hezbollah could hold the borders and defeated Israel. So, Israel as a military power is on the wane even in Gaza. Because they cannot sustain the genocide the way it is, because things are turning around in the western world as well. The government is calling for the recognition of Palestine are actually just trying to save their face. The British is saying recognize Palestine, France is saying, you're saying recognize Palestine, for God's sake, stop supplying to every song for now. Right? So one is we are witnessing the political defeat of the Israeli project. This is just a matter of time. I believe in the next 3 years, we are going to see the end of the apartheid Israeli project. Then there are certain terms which have been hit upon us by the Bidens and the Trumps and the Western leaders. This entire thing called Israel has the right to defend itself. Why do they keep on saying that? They keep on saying it because no colonial occupying power has the right to defend itself. There is no international law that says that the French in Algeria have the right to defend themselves, or the British in India, or the Americans in Vietnam, or in Iraq, or in Korea, or wherever. No colonial occupying power has a right to defend itself in the land it occupies. It has the responsibility to protect the people it occupies. That is why immediately we don't say Israel has the right to defend itself. Then there is one very interesting thing that I think she's very popular amongst all of us now, Frances Calvinist. She's one of the people who kind of deserves the Nobel, if anybody deserves the Nobel, apart from all the Palestinians who deserve the Nobel. The journalists, the doctors, the entire intellectual class of Palestine we wiped out. So Francis Calvin has taken a very important take on this. Israel has the right to exist. The point is they already exist. But the point is that no nation has some, right to exist. People have a right to exist. International law guarantees the right of people to exist and protects the right of people to exist. But Korea can become two Koreas, Germany can become two and become one. Poland was distributed to World War II, became a big country. Countries come and go. And apartheid South Africa went. But the people stay. So this right to exist, right to defend itself is just fed into minds without any basis in morality or international. The other third term that we get stuck in is the term of anti-Semitism. Now it is catching on in our country also. It's such a ridiculous term. The ambassador is a true blood Semite. For God's sake. The Palestinians have a recorded history of 4,000 years, but a history that goes back to Canaan, the Canaanite history of 11,000 years. They are the Jews. And the Ashkenazi, Khazar and Jews who come from Europe are being told that they are the Semitic people. So the entire term of Semitism is ridiculous. It comes from Europe. It comes from the European left who have their own guilt. Today there is a wonderful video by Ilan Pape. Ilan Pape says that even after World War II, there were no liberals or even the left in Europe who said that the Jews should remain in Europe. That the solution is for the Jews to remain in Europe and for Europe to fight its racism. A solution for European racism was found in Palestine. This is Ilan Pape. So the entire terminology that comes from the West, the right to defend, the right to exist, the anti-Semitism, this is the European problem. We need to have our own political terminology. Correct? I'll just end now. What is the belief that many of us do, that there is a massive change in the balance of global power. America has been on the decline. I stand with Russia because Russia has been attacked by US and NATO. So the entire BRICS that is emerging and emerging fast as an economic bloc and the military powers that are now challenging the West all over the place is changing to that. The other thing is the axis of resistance, which is Palestine right at the front. As we have the vanguard in the front line, we have the Hezbollah in Lebanon, we have Syria fell apart. They call Hamas and Hezbollah as terrorists. My friends, the government of India has never called Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists. The United Nations doesn't call Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists. The only ones who call them terrorists are the terrorist nations of the West. Israel, America, and those few countries that call themselves the international community. So the acts of resistance, all the way from, and the talking of terror, and you have Jolani, the Al-Qaeda chief of Syria, with Trump and with all the Western leaders. That is the idea of terrorism. Okay? And then you have Iran and then you have Yemen. This act of resistance playing a critical role in changing the balance of power in the Middle East. I'm sorry, that's the wrong term to use, in West Asia and across the world. And in that context, I think all the work that we do, this meeting itself is very important. I think all the journalists from here is very important, despite the difficulty that we have today. And all the work that we've done in this country. And we have an ambassador willing to work with us, come with us out of the country. I told him that we'll go with the sightseeing. He said, no sightseeing, just that we get like paid time to make it. He said, no, nothing does. I'll get up, you start 8 o'clock in the morning, get the interviews, get me to meet people, he's coming to work in work. Okay. So, all I'd like to say is we have a tradition, glorious Indian tradition that goes back a long, long way to the Palestine. The issue of Palestine was interwoven into our own freedom struggle, as we all know. We have a regime, an unelected regime, political fraud today that is bullying us. So, I believe that the Indian people, Indian society, and the global movements that are bringing about global change. And let me tell you one last thing, that Palestine is the most popular movement ever in the history of the world. The Palestinian flags are in every dog show, every football stadium. Today, the Palestinian movement, kind of millions that are being mobilized on the streets of the world, we haven't seen it in decades, not at this level. And Palestine is the central geopolitical issue. And when Palestine is free, the world will be truly free. Thank you.
Thank you, Feroz, for this very interesting and thought-provoking backdrop is given to the conflict in this whole area. As far as focusing on the journalist issues, we have few speakers before we finally request His Excellency to give his presentation. Can I request Sarfraz Arzu? He is a very renowned editor of the Hindustan Daily for years, and also the Secretary General of the Urdu Journalists Association. And the Khilafat Committee Chairperson too. So we are very happy to have him, and I request him to give some of his thoughts to our journalists.
मैं आप लोगों का ज़्यादा वक्त नहीं लूँगा और वो बातें भी नहीं दोहराऊँगा जो उससे पहले लोग हुए। न मैं फिलिस्तीन की तारीख पर कोई रोशनी डाल सकता हूँ, मैं डालना चाहता हूँ। मैं तो बात वहाँ से शुरू करूँगा कि आज लोग यहाँ फिलिस्तीन में जो जर्नलिस्ट हैं उनके नाहक कत्ल पर जो है अपना शोक व्यक्त करने के लिए जमा हुए हैं और हम शर्मिंदा इस बात पर हैं कि हमें इतना वक्त लगा कि इस दौरान तकरीबन 270 जर्नलिस्ट जो हैं वो शहीद हो गए। लेकिन फिर भी वो कहते हैं कि गांधी हम शर्मिंदा हैं, तेरे खातिर जिंदा हैं। तो बात वही है। मैं देखता हूँ इस चीज़ को इस एंगल से कि वर्ल्ड वॉर 1 में, वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 में, इराक के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में, अफगानिस्तान के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में, कोरिया के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में, यूगोस्लाविया में, बोस्निया में, जितनी भी दुनिया में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स रही हैं उन तमाम में कुल मिलाकर भी इतने जर्नलिस्ट नहीं मारे गए जितने अकेले गाजा में मारे गए। और ये हम लोगों के लिए बड़ी फिक्र की और अफसोस की बात है। जब हम लोग इस मीटिंग को ऑर्गेनाइज करने के बारे में प्लानिंग के स्टेजेस में थे और हमारे सामने अनस के कत्ल का मामला जो था वो सबके सामने था, तो उसी रोज उस अस्पताल पे बमबारी हो गई जिसमें रॉयटर्स का फोटोग्राफर मिस नासिर बसरी जो है और उसके 4 साथी जो है मारे गए। यानी हो सकता है जिस दौरान हम आपसे बात कर रहे हो उस दौरान भी कोई जो है शहीद हो गया हो। मसला सबसे बड़ा ये है कि इजराइल ने अपने नैरेटिव को दुनिया पर चलाने के लिए जो स्ट्रेटेजी इख्तियार की है वो ये है कि वो जर्नलिस्टों को मारने से पहले या मारने के बाद उनको एक बदनाम करने की मुहिम चलाते हैं। उनकी आर्मी में एक जस्टिफिकेशन यूनिट भी है जो ये बताता है कि जर्नलिस्ट जिसको शहीद किया गया है वो जर्नलिस्ट नहीं बल्कि हमास का एक ऑपरेटिव है। अनस के बारे में भी यही बात कही है, लेकिन अनस के बारे में ये बातें भी सामने आई कि उसको अगस्त की 10 तारीख को मारने से पहले उसको टेलीफोन पर धमकियां दी जाती थी, उसकी फैमिली मेंबर्स को धमकियां दी जाती थी कि तुम जो है अपना काम छोड़ दो और अनस से चले जाओ। लेकिन अनस ने इन तमाम धमकियों के आगे झुकने से इनकार किया, इसलिए उसको एलिमिनेट कर दिया गया। और ये बात जो है बहुत कम लोगों ने इसका एहसास किया होगा कि रॉयटर्स जैसा इदारा जो सारी दुनिया में खबरें फराहम करता है वो अपने जर्नलिस्टों के फोटो जर्नलिस्टों के मरने पर जो है अफसोस का इजहार नहीं करता, क्योंकि इजराइल ने जो नैरेटिव पेश किया है उसको आगे बढ़ाने की कोशिश करता है। न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स हो या दूसरे अखबार हो वेस्ट के, वो एक तरह से कन्वेयर बेल्ट्स बन गए हैं झूठ को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए। और खुद किसी एजेंसी ने ये सवाल नहीं किया कि अनस को अगर आपने हमास का ऑपरेटिव बताया है तो उसको जस्टिफाई करने के लिए आपके पास बैकग्राउंड क्या है, जबकि ओपन दुनिया है, ओपन हर चीज है। इन्वेस्टिगेटिव जर्नलिस्ट जो है वो इस बात की तह तक बड़ी आसानी से पहुंच सकते थे, लेकिन ऐसा कहीं नहीं हुआ। हमें इस बात की खुशी है कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने पहली मरतबा जर्नलिस्ट के मारे जाने पर जो है एक स्टैंड ली, हालांकि वो भी बहुत ही वीक स्टैंड है। खुशी उस बात से ज़्यादा हम लोगों को जिस चीज़ का है, जिस पर मैं आपकी बात को खत्म करूँगा, वो ये है कि हमारी सरकार ने वो रोल अदा नहीं किया जो उसको इस वर्ल्ड स्टेज पर अदा करना चाहिए। हमारी सरकार ने इसराइल के साथ दोस्ती और उसको जो है अपने साथ लेकर चलने का जो फैसला किया था, उसके पीछे उसकी मंशा ये थी कि इजरायली लॉबी अमेरिका में जो है इंडियन इंटरेस्ट को जो है सेफगार्ड करेगी, लेकिन ऐसा हुआ नहीं, बल्कि इसका उलट हो रहा है। और दूसरी चीज़ ये कि हम अगर विश्व गुरु बनने के ख्वाब देखते हैं और इस बात को जो है बार बार फैलाते हैं, तो हमने ऐसा कोई काम नहीं किया हमारी सरकारों ने जो इस बात को इंश्योर करे कि लोग सारी दुनिया के लिए हमारी तरफ देखें। पता नहीं ऐसा छोटा सा मुल्क कितनी आबादी है, कितना उसका एरिया है, लेकिन उसने इतने बड़े बड़े डिप्लोमेटिक कारनामे अंजाम दिए हैं कि तारीख उसको याद करेगी। और हमारे इशूज, जब श्रीलंका का मामला चल रहा था LTTE का और IPTF का, तो स्वीडन और नॉर्वे जैसी सरकारों ने जो है मध्यस्थता की और इस मामले को जो है अपने इख्तिताम तक पहुंचाया। यहाँ हमारा भी रोल होना चाहिए कि हमारी गवर्नमेंट जो है वो पहल करे और पैलेस्टीनियन इशू को सॉल्व करने में जो है एक प्रोएक्टिव रोल जो उसको अदा कर सकती है वो करना चाहिए। मैं समझता हूँ कि हम लोग और कुछ नहीं कर सकते, तो अपनी सरकार को इस बात के लिए तैयार तो करें कि वो इस मामले में पहल करे। शुक्रिया।
I must say that's a very important point made. That see, part of this fledgling thing which we have created, Indian Journalists for Palestine, should be a pressure point for the government also, not to take an ambivalent attitude and abstain from all voting on all forums, which it has been doing, whether it's the Ukraine war or the Palestinian question, but take a proactive role. So at least I find that for the first time they issued a statement which was brought to my attention by Kalpana Sharma, that they're actually the foreign ministry spokesperson Jaiswal actually issued a statement to that effect. So we should sort of try and further that process. Now as we move on, and I call upon, like I already said, Srinivasan Jain has not only reported extensively on different platforms from the region, so we'd really love to learn about those things, but he's also taken on the trouble to come here, and we really appreciate that gesture. So, Srinivasan Jain.
Thanks very much indeed, Gurveer and the Patrikar Sangh for organizing this gathering. I think when journalists are attacked anywhere, they're attacked everywhere. And oppressive regimes around the world are constantly looking for ways of further shrinking press freedoms. They're looking at Gaza and thinking that even if they cannot go as far as Israel, at least they can move the needle an inch of further shrinking the freedoms that are allowed to journalists. And as we know, an inch can become a mile. As we gather here in solidarity with Palestinian journalists in Gaza and the West Bank, it's worth noting that Palestinian journalists are not necessarily only covering a war. Since October the 7th, they have been bearing witness to their own demise and to the extinction of their people and their homeland. To be clear, even before October the 7th, they've never had the conventional advantages afforded to journalists reporting conflict, of having a distance from the story, of having somewhere to retreat to after you come back from the front lines. I had the briefest insight into this when in 2014, I was in Gaza for 10 days to cover that war. It was called Operation Protective Edge by the Israeli Army. It lasted for 7 weeks and 2,000 Palestinians were killed. And about an estimated 70 members of the Israeli army, the IDF. So that was a ratio of 1:30. At that time, 2,000 seemed like a huge number, but it's now almost been rendered meaningless by what we're seeing today. Gaza was like no theater of war that I've ever covered. Then as now, it wasn't even, as one of the speakers said earlier, a war in the conventional sense. There are no clearly demarcated front lines. There is not even the semblance of a parity between the combatants, where you have one of the most sophisticated militaries in the world taking on a militia that fires missiles, if they can be called that, makeshift missiles which are mostly taken out by Israel's Iron Dome. You're basically locked into a 26-mile-long strip, and all you can do as a journalist, as we did, is that you spend your nights in anxiety, listening to the thump of Israeli bombs falling in different parts of the strip, and then you make your way to the scene of the greatest carnage the next morning to report. Once you get to the scene of the bombing, you begin looking for answers. And the answers are always the same. The IDF almost has a standard boilerplate statement that the target of the strike was a Hamas base or a Hamas rocket launching site. And yes, it's true, Hamas does fire rockets from the Gaza Strip. We ourselves were able to capture one such launch on camera. But in many, many cases, there are still, to date, no clear answers as to why a UN shelter, or a school, or a residential complex, or a commercial complex, or a university, or entire neighborhoods were laid to waste, and why so many women, children, the elderly, young men with no discernible link to Hamas were killed. We would then have to find a rooftop to upload our stories, or to dispatch our stories. Because rooftops are the only places in Gaza where you get a signal. In every conflict, and even otherwise, Israel ensures that communications out of Gaza are severely restricted. Today, there are no rooftops left in Gaza. The Nasser Hospital was one such rooftop, where there was access for journalists to upload their footage, their content, because of the signals that you could arrange from there. And now, that's gone. So that, for my team in 2014, was a window into what the life of a Palestinian journalist is. Of course, we could exit, we could not. What we're seeing today is a dramatic worsening. Before October 7th, Palestinian journalists were routinely harassed. At checkposts, they were detained, and yes, they faced the threat of violence. But now all bets are off. They're being slaughtered along with their families in large numbers in a way that is unprecedented. Last year, I had traveled back to Israel to report on the one-year anniversary of the war. And I spoke to Shawesh. She was the wife of Roshti Siraj, who's a journalist and a filmmaker based in Gaza. And they have an 11-month-old daughter, Tanya, who's probably now 1 year old. Through voice notes, because it's very hard to reach journalists in Gaza, through voice notes, Shawesh described how Roshti was killed in front of her in their home with an Israeli strike. There was no prior warning. This again, to Israel's claim that they are the most moral army because they warned the victims in advance before striking. There was no warning here. And she watched her husband, Tanya was next to her, she watched her husband die in front of her. Both of them narrowly escaped with injuries. What is also new now is the large-scale smearing of Palestinian journalists as Hamas, as some of the speakers pointed to earlier, even before and after being killed. So first you have posters describing them as Hamas, then you have IDF spokespersons labeling them as Hamas, as in the case of Anas al-Sharif, which is why Palestinian journalists are writing their wills, even though they're 20, 30 years old. As the eyes of the Palestinian media are blinded, what is the rest of the world? What is the media and the rest of the world doing? Much of the Western press has helped provide cover to Israel's actions by repeating Israel's smears against Palestinian reporters without a shred of scrutiny. Not the kind of scrutiny that is await to one of their own. As many of you might remember, the Wall Street Journal reporter Ivan Gorshkovich, who was arrested in Russia, was picked up in Russia. The headline there was, Ivan Gorshkovich arrested on false claims. There was no ambivalence, there was no caveats, even though many at that time did not even know the charges against Gorshkovich. But the front page, first line of the New York Times article on the killing of Anasir Sharif mentioned the fact that Israel labels them as Hamas. And that's the line taken largely by the Western media. Israel's crackdown on information systems is so severe that UN staff, aid workers and doctors have become informal journalists, informal reporters. But it's also worth taking note, even as we talk about the systematic attempt to collapse information systems in Gaza, it's worth taking note of the extraordinary work being done by not just the Palestinian journalists who continue to report from there despite the risks, but also by a handful of Israeli media and rights groups. Because as for the Israeli press, their TV channels make ours look like Pulitzer nominees. But the notable exceptions, the Israeli daily Haaretz, of course, as we know, which has systematically reported on the excesses and the abuses of what is unfolding in Gaza and in the occupation and over the occupation in general. Most recently, reported on the deliberate strategy, the ideal strategy of firing on civilians at Gaza's food distribution centers. There's also, and again for those who might be looking for resources, the 972 magazine, which comes out of Haifa, plus 972, that's the sort of phone code for Israel, which just a week ago, along with the Guardian, reported on how Israel had vastly exaggerated the number of Hamas fighters it has killed. According to the stories, figures from a classified IDF database shows that 9,000 fighters were killed or probably dead in May, which is far removed from the IDF claim of having killed 25,000-30,000 fighters. Then there is Breaking the Silence, which is a collection of former IDF soldiers who are breaking the silence on the abuses and the war crimes of their own military and in the occupied territories, not just in Gaza. Last year, I interviewed one of their members, Joel Carmel, in Jerusalem, a former soldier. He told me about a new report they were bringing out in which IDF soldiers who served in Gaza in this war have testified, and to the point that Israel makes that Hamas uses human shields, IDF soldiers have testified how the Israeli army uses human shields, where Palestinian civilians are made to wear IDF uniforms, are strapped with a GoPro camera, and are sent into buildings and locations where there might be a booby trap. Another valuable resource has consistently been B'Tselem, a rights group which is based in Tel Aviv and has presence in the West Bank, which most recently reported last year on the enhanced torture of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli prisons, which is often a neglected chapter of what is going on right now. That after October 7th, the levels of torture have escalated dramatically. I interviewed two such prisoners in Nablus last year who were released because the charges against them are simply unsustainable. And one of them, as he was describing what was done to him in Megiddo prison, which is one of Israel's most notorious prisons, where dogs are set upon you and where, incidentally, a video was made of IDF soldiers, feel my heart. And he was sweating profusely. This is several months after he'd been released, but just recounting his own experience was that traumatic for him. So B'Tselem has again been doing excellent work. So there are attempts to hold Israel accountable, even if nothing comes of it. It's finally taken the Nasser hospital killing to get Benjamin Netanyahu to issue arguably his first apology for the killing of journalists and for an investigation to be announced. We know this is laughable, We know this for a multiple number of reasons, but we certainly know this in the case of Shireen Abdullah Clay, who, despite being a US citizen, despite being killed by a sniper, despite being killed in the pre-October 7th impunity, and despite for the first time Western media having to investigate her killing and point out that it was targeted, it was deliberate, Israel deflected, denied, finally conducted an investigation and said it was a mistake. And it's only after that Zeteo, the media platform of Mehdi Hassan, who's now based in America, British journalist, identified the soldier, that we learned that this was something that was planned in advance. And the documentary contained a chilling detail which stayed with me, that after she was killed and after the global outcry, despite the global outcry, the IDF was using her image as target practice. So despite the complete absence of accountability, despite the risks, Palestinian reporters are still out there every day. And I asked one of them about it last year, why this was the case. And they said their determination to record the extermination of their people is informed by history. There is a sense of regret that prior generations could not record the Nakba of 1948, the first great act of ethnic cleansing. And all of those records were deliberately destroyed, but there was a sense that that entire chapter of history was somehow wiped out or erased in their own telling of it. And so we owe it to them to raise our voice and protest, even if it is futile, even if it is pointless, because impunity, whether in India or in Israel, thrives in silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinivas, for those insights. Before we have His Excellency speaking, I'll just request one more journalist to say a few words. Gautam Navlaka, who is here with us. Just a few words. He's been an old journalist, and thanks to the state, we have him in Bombay. So, let us get some experience from him.
I don't want to take too much of your time because I would like to listen to His Excellency. All I want to say is that I feel extremely anguished, embarrassed, ashamed that the country my country, which stood by and was one of the first countries to recognize the Palestinian people's struggle, today is hands in glove. Firoz mentioned the names of many countries which have been complicit in this genocide, mentioned the names of United States, UK, France, Germany and all. I think he forgot India because we are as much a party to this genocide as the Western countries. But unlike the West and North America, where the civil society woke up and was out marching on the streets and protesting and is still challenging the narrative of the Zionists and the authorities, Indian civil society is completely silent, and we have been pushed into silence also by a government which banned virtually protests in favor of Palestine. So I mean, I don't know what the state we have reached. I find it terribly embarrassing. I'm filled with outrage. I don't want to add anything. I think I'd much rather listen to you because I don't think there is much happening in this country. And after 2 years, we woke up to a genocide that was taking place in front of our eyes. I think it speaks the volumes for the state of our state and society. Thank you.
Thank you for this. We have with us an actor who's been also participating in the support and solidarity struggle, Adran Khan. We welcome him here. Thank you very much for coming and joining the journalists in our small protest. And again, I'll remind you as we go out, there are candles at the entrance of the Patrakar Sangh. and please light one or more than one. Finally, we come to the last part of our program, which we are all anxiously awaiting. His Excellency Abdullah Shawesh, Abu Shawesh. Welcome to Mumbai, and we'd love to have your views and how we can in any way help with the we feel helpless, but we try and do something, whatever is possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed. It's not an easy task to take the mic after the outspoken versus the journalist who's taking the floor before me to deliver a speech, especially related to the journalism, media, and all this stuff. And I should be very frank when I say that I'm an economist. I'm not a politician, but really a Palestinian, born and raised to be a politician by default. This is we used to breastfeed the politician. But when I been appointed to the United Nations, I graduated to be an economist, and in the United Nations I was working only in the sustainable development issue. And even when the President Abbas appointed me to be an ambassador in Nigeria, I told them I'm an economist and I will back to work in the sustainable development issue and to strengthen ties between Palestine and that great country in the sustainable development issue. But when the Trojan horse happened, and when I say Trojan horse, I mean total 70. It's a fact that it became a Trojan horse. I find myself having no other choices except to be a journalist, to be a writer, to be a media man. I'm not a professional, but I try my best to. Thank you so much indeed. This is very important introduction for you, so that if you feel that this is not a journalist, this is not a professional man, so because all of you is a very professional in this field, this is your specialty, and I came after many people, many distinguished brothers here, whom very specialized and deliver in this field and deliver their So allow me also to start by thanking the organizer of this very important event. It's really very important for me for many reasons, of course. On top of that, yes, we are in a desperate need as a Palestinian people to raise our voice, not only here, worldwide. Our voice is completely blocked, completely shadow banned, and it's not a new phenomenon. It was there. This is something that we will not, hesitate to say that our voice was completely blocked a long time, and we are not on the media, even after 273 of your colleagues, journalists, have been assassinated and targeted, not killed, targeted, because wording has a meaning. Still, the Western media is used to say, yes, we want Israel to open the border for an independent journalist. Take a look to the word independent journalist, so that according to them, 237 of your colleagues are independent. This is the biased media. This is the controlled media. And when I say controlled media, it's not anti-Semitic, because I'm a Semitic man, so that no one can accuse me of being Semitic. The media is totally controlled to some extent in many places in the world, but in many other places and some other places in the world, unfortunately, even the media, and unfortunately in many of the friends' countries, is not giving us the opportunity to appear on their screens. I'm not revealing a secret when I say that some of those media guys in a friend's country even did not give us as ambassador of Palestine to pay them even a courtesy visit. Media. So that when I had been invited to this event, I found it a very important opportunity. And to be very frank, even my colleagues there at my team in the office in tell me you should go. You must go. It's our opportunity. And I did not spare any opportunity to meet with them at any time and at any cost. And I used to tell my team, I want to meet with the media who is very broad. And we witness, and I'm monitoring the media here in India, I witnessed by myself some of the media and the journalists took a step back. I witnessed that, and I used to call them and to say, it's time to listen to us. And one of them, she told me, listen, I went to Israel many times, and I know she's, but she told me, I cannot, under any circumstances, defending more what is happening. So, we have a duty collectively. But before I also talk about the collective duty, I want to remind you, it's not the first time that the Palestinian journalists have been targeted. One, I can call him, basically call him a Palestinian journalist. He's a Jewish, was Jacob Israel Dahyan. Jacob Israel Dahyan. In 1924, the gangs, the terrorist gang, and this is not our word, this is the mandate, the British mandate, they labeled them as a terrorist gang, Lehi, Haganah, and others. The Jewish military gangs assassinated the first ever journalist in Palestine in 1924 because they believed that Dahyan, Jacob Israel Dahyan, was threatening existential threat to their project. So that they assassinated him. It is in the all of this information in the Google, anywhere you can find it. I mean, Google it, you will find it. So that it's not a new phenomenon for the Israeli military gangs, terrorist gangs, and terrorists is their label, of course. This is not our word. This is your old occupier, your old colonizer. They call them a terrorist gang. So that this is not the first time that they used to kill journalists. And in March 13, 2022, in the second intifada, when they targeted, we should not forget the Italian journalist Rafael Carrillo, whom was assassinated and targeted during the first intifada. Then all of you know the story of Shireen, which is not, even Shireen is not Muslim, she's a Christian and American citizen, but Palestinian. And all of you know her story. Then the ongoing massacres that targeting only the Palestinian terrorists. I will not only, because you watch the last war crime that happened in live on the screen, on Al Jazeera screen. But before that, few days, 2 weeks ago, they assassinated Anas al-Sharif. After 682 days of moving, Anas used to podcast, to a reporter from every single street in Gaza. Then they discovered after 682 days that he's a part of Hamas. So that they did not use, but they used to call it a surgical strike, but they choose to kill him alongside with other 5 of his people. This is the exact proof that they are targeting that journalists intentionally. And you already mentioned the name of Al-Dahdouh. The Dahdouh family was completely, they threatened him through the phone. Wa'il al-Dahdouh, your colleague Wa'il, they threatened him through the phone. If you did not stop, you will pay the price. Wa'il did not stop. Then he paid the price from his entire family. and while buried him and back to report it from him. Then they assassinated his son. While even burying his son and back to report, then Al Jazeera called it because they would have they will die. Why is it with a broken heart? So this is the issue when it came to the media. But very important subject I would like to shed light on it, which is this. I want you to alert me when I 5 minutes. History. Our history was not started in November 2nd, 1917, when your occupier and we the Palestinians should not hesitate to point the finger to the one who started this evil misery against the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people was, the suffering of the Palestinian people was started by the United Kingdom. Your occupier, when they gifted our homeland voluntarily, without even, they did not at that time have any single footprint in our homeland. They was occupying, but they gifted our homeland to the Khazarian Jew. When I say Khazarian Jew, I want to all the time to think what's the meaning of Khazarian Jew. Who have zero connection, zero DNA connection to Israel, Yaakov, and Prophet Israel and Prophet Yaakov. They converted to Judaism 1100 years ago. And this means a lot for us. So United Kingdom, November 2nd, issued the despicable Balfour Declaration. In this declaration, they gifted our homeland to the European Khazarian. But again, this is not the start. Our history started tens of thousands of years ago. So when they used to say that there is no such thing called the Palestinian people, likewise, the fanatic, Messianic, United States of America ambassador to Israel, Hakati, said a month ago, there is no such thing called a Palestinian. He's a preacher, Christian preacher, but he did not even realize that we, the Palestinians, by our explicit Arabic name, Palestine, is there in the first chapter, in the first book of Genesis, of the Holy book, of the Torah itself, in Genesis, verses 21 slash 36. We said, John, Abraham in the land, in the Palestinian land, many days. In Hebrew, Yagar Abraham Be'az, Palestinian Yamimba. Imagine those famous people, how they are thinking about the Palestinians, how they are more dangerous, not only about for the Palestinians, but for the entire world. The preacher who should very first issue to remember is the Genesis, which anyone, when you open any book, you're gonna read the first chapter. When you open the Holy, the Bible itself, you're gonna read the first chapter is Genesis. And the very first ever, in the very first pages, we are there in our explicitly, but those fanatic people, those criminal people, is used to deny the facts, even the fact that they should preach. This is the way how much they are dangerous, not only against for the Palestinians, but for the entire people all around the world. And I did not need, there is no need to remind you what they mentioned about in there just a few days ago. I mean the American. Back to the war in Gaza. It was not started in October 7th. What about October 6th? Anyone know what happened to the Palestinian people in October 6th? Did the killing of the Palestinian people make any news in any screen worldwide? Assassinating or targeting and assassinating the Palestinian children for fun, and when I say for fun, I mean it. When I say targeting the Palestinian children to take them for their social media. I mean it, and we have videos, not videos. We have pictures and videos about it. But does this make any news on any screen around? Since January 1st, 2023 till October 6th, Friday, October 6th, 2020, more than 400 Palestinians have been targeted, killed, assassinated. More than, out of them, more than 90 child. And the vast majority of them in West Bank, where there is no Hamas, nothing, and all of this stuff that they use it as one of them called Muhammad al-Tamimi. I know his family, I know his father, I know his village. 2.5 years old. The war was started long time. The war was started by the United Kingdom. British started this war. They saw the seeds for all the evil and the misery that we are facing, and we are facing. The same exact country that occupying, killed and assassinated tens of thousands of your people by hunger. And you remember that, I'm British. But accusing the Palestinian people of being terrorists, this is not the first. They accusing you of being terrorists. Your occupier again accused you in 1857 of being terrorists, anarchists, and all of this stuff. And they hang to death many of your loved ones. Even President Abbas is the one who's day and night calling for a peaceful resistance. They called him a terrorist diplomat. And they day and night calling for dismantling the Palestinian Authority because this is a terrorist organization. So the classification of them for the Palestinian people to be terrorists is there. Each one of us as a Palestinian, even if we resisted their occupation by point, we are terrorists. But if there is Israeli and there is a lot of Israelis and hundreds and thousands of Jewish people who are aligning themselves with us, hate self-Jew. And if any one of you now raise his voice, you are not Jewish, not Palestinian, but you are anti-Semitic. One more. And if you raise your voice very strongly, you are anti-Semitic and Holocaust denier. There is not, the classification is there. Even this classification is reached their very prominent friends. France is the country that deliver and supply them with the nuclear weapons. Now France is inciting and igniting the anti-Semitism. So the classification is there. Yasser Arafat is terrorist. Yasser Arafat is terrorist. The current president, who is day and night again is calling for a peaceful resistance, is also a terrorist. But the question is, because time is very limited, I have many things to talk about. But the question is the way out. Is this a battle for the Palestinian, or is this should be a Palestinian people struggle, or this is a collective struggle for anyone worldwide who's believing that we, the human being, have one shared human future? This is a struggle for everyone who believes no one is safe until everyone is safe. And anyone believes that if the Palestinians is far away from our, we want to do with the Palestinians. The Israeli Messianic, the current Israeli Messianic government, day and night, pushing very hard to deteriorate this war to become a religious war. And if it is happening, like it's not only the current, and the American fanatic, American people, who is the evangelical, I mean, and on top of them, of course, the current American ambassador to Israel, pushing very hard to make sure that this is a religious war. If it happened like this, if it deteriorated to become a religious war, no one will be safe. And history teach us lots of lessons when it came to a religious. And when it came to a religious issue, my very first ever boss in the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation was a Jewish man. His name is Ilan Halevi. When we articulate the first government under the chairmanship of Yasser Arafat, one of our ministers was Rabbi, Jewish Rabbi, Moshe Shawesh. The first one to smuggle weapons to Yasser Arafat. I want you to listen carefully to all of these things because it's very important. I'm just shedding light because this is not Muslim against Jewish, like it was not Hindus against British colonization and British Christian. It was people under the British colonization against the British colonization. It was not Hindus. So it was not Muslim. It is not Muslim. But it happened that we are the Muslim. 97% of the consisting of our society, 97%. The first one to smuggle weapons to Yasser Arafat is a Christian Archbishop, Kabuji. The one who established the most tough military resistance against the Israeli, George Habib, Christian man. On behalf of the Palestinian people, now the outspoken person, the very famous writer, the vast majority of them is Jewish people. The outspoken person in Palestine till today is Hanan Ashrawi, Christian woman. Yasser Arafat wasn't this. His spokesman was this. The BNF, the Palestinian National Fund chairman, is Ramzi Khouri, Dr. Ramzi Khouri, is a Christian. Jewish is there in our life as a Jewish, but not as occupation. We will not accept their narrative that the God created two types of people, the Jewish and the Gentile. And our main purpose as a Gentile, all of you, of course, I'm sorry to say that, is to serve the 17 million. This is the mentality that is guiding this society. This is the mentality that allowing them to kill with the very cold blood the Palestinian people. This is the mentality that allowed them to trample by their tanks the Palestinian families. And we saw picture. This is the mentality that gave them the ability to snap 2.5 years old. This is the mentality that this is the essence of what so-called the terrorist act. To talk about the Palestinian question, it's a time consuming, it takes us a lot of time, but before again, what to do? Together, what to do? If we believe that this is gonna affect you, whether you like it or you would not like it, this is gonna affect you in a humanitarian sense, you should not stop watching. You should not watch the Palestinian, your colleagues, the journalists, to be assassinated and targeted. Then the Western media to say we need the Israeli to open the border for the foreign media because we want to see independent report. So 200 again. 38, one of your colleagues is not independent. It's very dangerous word. What to do? If you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We should go together because this is not our question. Yes, it is we are paying from our blood in a daily basis. And my family there in Gaza, I was born in a refugee camp in Gaza, so that my entire family is there, my nephew, and the question that did I lost some of my relative or not? This should not be the question. How many of you, for anyone from Gaza, when you ask him how many of your relatives did you lose? Not whether you lost, and I lost a lot of my cousins. But the question is what to do. We should go together because this will affect you, and you have an moral responsibility. It's really moral responsibility. You will not be able to remove from Gaza, but it is fair to listen to us. It is fair, and this is my humble appeal to all of you. Listen to us. Come with the very tough question. Start by October 7th. Start by the hostages. Then the hostages, we discover only there are 50 hostages. We did not minimize the misery of those hostages at all, and we should be back to their own right now. But what about another 10,500 Palestinian hostages? 73 of them has been killed, targeted inside the Israeli jail. One of them has been raped in front of the camera. One of them, man, he raped in front of the camera. Then it was discussed in the Israeli Knesset, not from a legal perspective, but from his moral or not moral perspective. And the one who conducted this very shameful act, he went in his social media, and you can think about this. And he suggests I'm proud to, and I will continue. This is the sick society that is guiding them. Of course, with the evangelicals leading the vast majority of the Americans. We are all in danger, but we are in the eye of the heart now. And it's not only Gaza, we stand in the eye of the soul. Speaking of the Palestinian heritage, I know it's gonna take a lot of time, but again, my humble opinion, my humble appeal to all of you, reach out to us, listen to us, and all of you very tough question I'm here in New Delhi. I can keep another, you can invite me after 1 month, I can came here, spend one entire day for meeting, to spend one entire day just to answer some of these very critical questions that to counter the Israeli narrative. Because the Israeli narrative is very dangerous, not only against the Palestinian people. Trampling the international law is not in favor of them. Threatening the ICC judge, and it's not in favor of anyone. It's not in favor. Then to went loud and clear and to say that the International Criminal Court was created for Russia and the African people. And of course, other countries, they decided, but not for Israel, or not for the Americans themselves, the Europeans themselves. It's very dangerous. Again, I'm in your hands, anytime, through the Zoom meeting, through the phone, to contact me directly in my office, and I'm pretty sure that you will be in my office very soon. Please contact me. Make sure that because wording all the time have a meaning, and you have a very important and very significant responsibility to save the world as a whole. Not to save not to make just your salaries, but to save the world. And to save the world, we should all make sure that all the time respond to it. With that, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we can take one or two questions. So, if there are any questions, we can quickly take them.
Yes, please.
We would also like to know what is happening in the West Bank.
Yeah, go, sure. In the West Bank, I gotta just raise one example in the West Bank. The vast majority of the water that the Israelis use in Israel and everywhere came from West Bank. We are denied the right to dig the wells too. And they used to dig this well to expose the water and to resell it to us in 3 times and not in a sufficient amount, so that in Ramallah, Bethlehem, Khalil district, for example, in the summer we are suffering. I'm telling you, just in a day, this project will be used. We are talking about 10,500 Palestinian homeless in the Israeli trade. The vast majority of them is, of course, from West Bank, not Gaza. Approximately 5,000 of them is just under the administrative detention, which means that there is no fine, but there is decision to make sure that X, Y should be in them. All of them, without no exception, all of those prisoners is subject to a daily ill treatment, torture, and then a human treatment. We have tens of people. Bustan, for example, is a village. And in because it's a mountain, you're gonna find in these villages one entrance, and sometimes the very lucky village have 2 entrances and exit. But the vast majority of it is one entrance. 1,000, around 1,000 plus. But we are talking about 1,000 gates. Put aside that the checkpoints, the military checkpoints, gates, iron gates with a key. It's not controlled only by the Israelis. One of these gates, and we have the videos, any one of those criminal terrorist Israeli sectors decided to close the gate, you will not back to your family, or you will not be able to leave your because there is someone decided, he woke up very nervous, then he decided with those criminal people, decided to close and to shut down the entry. 3 days ago, in the center of Ramallah, and this is not the first time, they went inside Ramallah.